Hello, and welcome to the debut of the Truth Behind Teaching podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Drinkwater, and today I will be talking about the school system. School, that thing we all dread going to 5 days a week. It's safe to say that most people don't enjoy going to school or even like it at all. But I think that today's episode will help you gain more knowledge on school in itself and how teachers feel about it too. Now, some of you may be wondering what today's episode will consist of. Well, I will tell you that today's episode will consist of information on the school system and an interview with a maths teacher, Sarah Dodd, who will be sharing her own experience as a teacher. My podcast aims to give students and educators an insight of the school system, as well as bringing guests on my podcast to give their own personal experiences and views. As a college student myself, I have always wondered how teachers view their own job as well as their students. Well, today, I have been able to invite a maths teacher onto my podcast who is willing to share her experience as a teacher and her own opinion on the school system. She has been teaching for over 20 years at different high schools and has taught in places such as Dubai, where she lived and taught for 4 years. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as the interview is about to begin.
I was mostly in Set 1, so I generally had a good education, but not the best. The school that I went to wasn't a choice of where you went to that school or nowhere. And it was a basic comprehensive, inner city Salford, and not the best. Given that, managed to leave school with a raft of GCSEs that afforded me to be able to get on to do A-levels. Didn't enjoy A-levels, went and did an apprenticeship instead, and in a roundabout way ended up going to university when I was older to train to be a teacher. So I'd never actually planned on being a teacher. I'd planned on going into working in the chemical industry, which I did for a good 10 years, and was a development chemist and developed products that are still on the market today. But going through the late 90s, early 2000s, there was lots of redundancies and a lot of instability in the industry, and I decided that I would change career path and train to be a teacher. So instead of being a science teacher, I ended up being a maths teacher. It wasn't a choice that I didn't want to do science, it was just that maths came back to me first, and I enjoyed maths at school and it made sense, and I've enjoyed it ever since. So although I'm based in Manchester and I've lived in Manchester most of my life, I haven't always just taught in Manchester and the surrounding areas. I've taught abroad in Dubai. I was out there for 4 years, and curriculum wise it was still the British curriculum, following the same systems, teaching the same curriculum, get the same expectations for the students and what their experience should be and what their outcomes should be. Slightly different out there, as you are inspected every year, not every few years like with Ofsted here. There's a lot of pressure because the parents are paying for their education of their students or their children, so there's a lot of pressure to get the results out of them and be present all the time. Very, very stretching in terms of contact from them. Thoroughly enjoyed it out there. The students were lovely on the whole. The behaviour is the same no matter where you are. Teenagers are teenagers the world over. So you might think that being in the UK system that kids are more belligerent and disruptive here than they are elsewhere, and they're not. They're really not. It's very much similar the world over.
Now that the first section of the interview is over, I would like to introduce you to some facts on the school system, why it is the way it is, and who made it. Did you know that the most recently published national curriculum was introduced in schools in September 2014? Children learn best in different ways. Some children are best suited to learn through visual stimulation, others may learn best through hands-on education. The reality is that the current educational system doesn't accommodate any learning style, nor does it aim for anything other than high test scores. According to a survey conducted among English adults in May 2021, approximately 50% of people would change the national curriculum. There were over 10.7 million pupils attending schools in the United Kingdom in 2022 to 2023, compared with 10.6 million in the previous year and 9.65 million in 2010 to 2011, which is obviously a lot of people. Now, you would think that because of the outdated school system, less people would want to study at college. However, a study from 2023 states that there were 30.7% of people in 2015 that studied at college, but it increased to 38.2% in 2021. Unfortunately, this percentage has fell back down to 35.8% in 2023. A study that gives us more information on why this percentage has decreased shows us that 7 in 10 students have considered dropping out of higher education since starting their degree. Nearly 2/5 of those gave rising costs as the main reason, while 69% of all students admitted to adjusting their spending over the last term because of the rising cost of living. This problem could cause less and less students to attend college in the future years. All of these studies have clearly shown me that school needs an update, as it could encourage students to attend school as well as college. This is important as it will allow students to gain further education and a job that they will feel comfortable with. Now, I would like to welcome Sarah Dodd back onto the podcast for the second interview. Yes, you heard that right, another interview. In this interview, Sarah will be sharing her own personal experiences as a teacher, and she will be talking about her honest opinion on her job. I hope you enjoy this next segment.
So every day is different, never the same day twice. You're never teaching the same thing to the same people the day after. Things are always moving, always changing, having to adapt to make sure that the learners are making the progress that they should be making. Obviously you've got the kids come with their issues and whatever might be troubling them. You have to manage those behaviours in your classroom as well to make sure that they're settled and not disrupting others, making sure that everyone's getting a steady diet of the curriculum that's being delivered. It's enjoyable in that you can see that kids are making progress and you can see that they're getting better at practicing their skills and pushing forward and hopefully making the best for themselves for their future. It can be challenging when you've got behaviours that obviously disrupt the learning and make it difficult to teach what you're trying to get across. But on the whole, the teaching element, working with the kids in class, getting them to experience something and getting them to understand something new is really, really enjoyable, and you feel like you're making an impact and helping them get better for themselves. Move from classroom to classroom and get used to having different teachers throughout the day with different expectations in what equipment they've got, where they're sitting, how they work, how they structure things, and making sure that they are there on time. At the beginning of the year can be quite stressful, but by the end of year 7 they've settled in and they know what they're doing and they know how the school runs. In terms of teaching the different year groups, year 7 come into high school where they've been in a classroom on the whole all the time with the same teacher day in day out from primary school. They might have a maths teacher or an English teacher that they might go to separately within the primary school setting, but on the whole it's the same teacher that they have. So when they come to high school, it's a big change for them to year 8. Feels like it's a bit of an in-between year because it's building on what they've learned in year 7, how they've developed, what their understanding is, and making sure we've got the foundations ready for starting the GCSE curriculum. So once we've got that established, going into year 9, we're really making sure that we're cementing their understanding of the fundamental elements so that when they go into year 10, they start their GCSE curriculum proper and they have a really solid learning bed that they're building on to make sure that they're getting the best outcomes out of year 11. In terms of how students behave between those different years, like I say, 7s are very needy, 8s on the whole are a little more settled but tend to be a little bit bouncy. Year 9 is when they're making their options, so they tend to be a little bit more aware of what's going on around them and wanting to make the choices that's going to be best for them moving forward. Year 10's the first year of GCSE, so you can be a bit up and down with them deciding whether they've made the right choices at the start of year 10. And then into year 11 when they're established and they're making sure that they're getting ready for the GCSEs. So there's a lot of practice with GCSE papers and revision and lots of extra support put in place to make sure that they're getting the best outcomes when they come to sit their GCSE exams.
Unfortunately, the interview has come to an end, but now I would like to talk about my thoughts on the school system and my own personal experiences from primary school all the way to college. So after listening to Sarah and gathering information on this topic, I would like to talk about my opinion. Personally, I think that the school system is outdated as students learn and perform in different ways. Like I said before, a lot of students learn quickly through visual simulation, but some may prefer revision or manual work such as evaluating a piece of text. In my own experience, I have found that I work better through visual simulation and typing on a computer. In high school, all of the work was in books and paper, whilst in college, I type a lot as I take level 3 media, which is mostly computer work. Another aspect that I believe is that the UK educational system places too much emphasis on academic subjects and not enough on practical skills. This could leave students ill-equipped for the real-world challenges such as finance, literacy, digital skills and vocational training. From my own point of view, my school was very focused on academic subjects instead of practical skills. I remember when I was in year 7 to year 9, I hadn't chosen my GCSE subjects yet, but one of my options of subjects that I could pick was business and media. Now I wasn't sure what these subjects consisted of because they weren't put into place until I was in year 9. Therefore, nobody, including me, knew what these subjects consisted of, and some have missed out on opportunities. Like, I obviously have taken media in college, but I could have maybe had a head start if I had been introduced to it in high school. But even though I didn't take media in high school, I was able to take it in college, as I didn't need media in high school for me to take it in college. Thankfully, college has a lot of opportunities such as drama, sociology, criminology, film studies, as well as media. So let's say you didn't take drama in high school, or your high school just didn't include this subject, but you wanted to take it up in college. You won't be able to take it up in college as you need qualifications. I think that schools could have more facilities as it would benefit their students in high school and their future life. Unfortunately, today's episode is about to come to an end. My episode will be out on the 1st of April, the day a lot of us go back to school. I upload new episodes once a month as it allows me to gather more interesting stories that I can talk about in the podcast. I hope that today's episode has given you a better understanding of the school system and how teachers view their own jobs. The aim of my podcast is to give students and educators a further understanding of school and how others view it too. I would also recommend the parents of students to listen to this podcast, as it will give them an insight of their own kids' views on the school as well as teachers. If you are still listening, I would like to thank you for listening to the first episode of the Truth Behind Teaching podcast. Thank you, see you next time.